On the pavements of Khan Yunis and Rafah in southern Gaza, Palestinians have been dropping to the ground dead due to a relentless enemy that is using starvation along with other tactics widely considered war crimes as a calculated strategy. On March 2nd, Israel imposed a complete blockade on Gaza, halting all deliveries of food, medicine, and humanitarian aid. Conditions have deteriorated over the months into what officials now openly describe as a real famine. At least 80 infants have died of malnutrition since October, and famine-related deaths have now surpassed 620. More than 650,000 children under 5 are at severe risk of dying, alongside tens of thousands of pregnant women who lack food, care, and medicine. Meanwhile, those desperately seeking aid to survive are being actively targeted, with over 1,000 civilians killed by Israeli forces or US mercenaries while waiting in food lines between May and July 2025 alone. But this is not the first time Palestinian families have been forced to boil weeds, grind animal feed into flour, chew bitter leaves, or chase down stray animals for scraps of meat. Desperate survival tactics etched into the Palestinian collective memory, all while the world watches. The desperation unfolding now is tragically familiar. It rings like a siren in the minds of those who endured the siege of the Yarmouk refugee camp in Syria, where hunger hollowed out bodies and silence hung between bombings. Yarmouk camp on the southern edge of Damascus was established in 1957 to shelter Palestinians forcibly displaced by Israel's foundational ethnic cleansing. Over time, it developed into a densely populated urban district, home to over 160,000 Palestinian refugees, alongside hundreds of thousands of Syrians. When Syria's civil war broke out in 2011, Yarmouk initially remained neutral, but in December 2012, Syrian opposition entered the camp, prompting a heavy military response. The Assad regime launched airstrikes, and within months, Yarmouk was under siege. By mid-2013, the siege had hardened into near-total isolation. Regime forces and allied militias cut off the entry of food, medicine, fuel, and humanitarian aid. Approximately 18,000 civilians were trapped inside. Electricity and running water were cut. Between July 2013 and early 2014, nearly 200 civilians died, most from starvation or untreated illness. Among the dead were infants and the elderly. Even searching for food became a death sentence. Civilians who approached checkpoints or tried to leave the camp were often shot by snipers. Hunger was not a consequence of war. It was a deliberate weapon. Some stories revealed the extreme depths of desperation, like that of teenager Mazen al-Asali, who took his own life after returning home empty-handed, unable to feed his starving mother. In a grim acknowledgement of how dire the conditions had become, Yarmouk's leading imam issued a fatwa permitting the consumption of cats, dogs, and donkeys. Just like in Gaza today, international aid efforts were repeatedly obstructed. On January 13, 2014, an UNRWA convoy carrying polio vaccines and food for 6,000 people was forced to retreat after coming under fire. Then on January 31, a photographer accompanying another food delivery convoy captured an image that would define the siege years later. Thousands of desperate residents crowded a devastated street lined with ruins, waiting for aid. The image was so harrowing that some aid workers required trauma counseling upon returning to Damascus. That photo quickly became a symbol of Syria's humanitarian catastrophe. UNRWA launched the Let Us Through campaign, displaying the image in giant screens in New York's Times Square and Tokyo's Shibuya district. Millions joined a petition calling for humanitarian access. What was once a refugee camp, meant to be a safe haven for Palestinians, had become one of the worst places on earth. No electricity, no water, no food, and no escape. Yarmouk became a symbol of modern siege warfare and a mirror held up to the world. Some even called it Syria's Gaza.
إنه أشوف أمي وأكل خبز. أنا تعبان أسمع صوت ستي وأكل خبز. أنا بحلم باكل حصان. أنا بحلم آكل شاورما. أنا بحلم آكل سكر. عن جد بحلم إنه أخوي يرجع يعيش. قعدنا مشتاق له.
بالعيد كنا ناكل لحمة، كنا نلعب، كنا نقرا نجوم. يقولوا يفتح المعابر ويروحون عدو. إحنا لنا 5 شهور ما كلناش لحم.
For Palestinians who lived through it, Yarmouk is not just a memory. It was and is a warning. 11 years later, that warning has gone unheeded. Gaza now appears to be facing the same fate, and this time without any serious humanitarian intervention.
The last time I ate vegetables was more than 8 months ago.
Babies are dying because there is no milk, neither powder nor from their own mother.
I am 6 months pregnant and unable to provide the basic necessities of life for my child.
I am not ashamed to say this publicly. I, like my family and my children, am hungry. We are not weak, but the war has broken our bones, and the siege has hollowed out our stomachs.